Relocating out of the state with your child is something that comes up fairly commonly, right? Between parents who are no longer married or who have never been married. And whether or not you can relocate out of the state with your child depends. First of all, it depends on if you have custody of the child. Do you have sole custody or do you have shared parenting? In a situation where you have sole custody of your child, you do have every right to relocate out of the state. But do know this. Number one, you will need to notify the court as well as the other parent. When you notify the court and the other parent, either the court or the other parent has the right to say, hey, I don't want you to move. And that's a reason to start a new court case. Sometimes the parent who's not relocating can gain custody, especially if they can show the reason you're relocating to another state is really not in the best interest of the child. Say you're not moving because you have a new job, or you're not moving to be closer to family. You're just moving because, well, you think it'll be better there, or because you recently met some new woman off the internet and now you want to live with her. Those are not necessarily reasons that the court is going to believe that it's in the best interest of your child for you to relocate out of the state. A different scenario is if you have shared parenting. If you have shared parenting, there will be specific wording in the document. Some parents have thought about this possibility before they enter into their shared parenting agreement. So the document may say something like, if one parent relocates out of the state, then they may not take the child with them. The custody of the child will remain with the parent who stays in the state. So in that case, no, you can't relocate out of the state with your child. It really depends on what the paperwork says. But also know that the court has the right to step in and say, no, you can't. And finally, you should know that once you've relocated out of the state with your child, even if the court says it's okay, number one, the case will continue to be in Ohio, because that's where I'm familiar. And so if you ever have to come back to modify child support, to make changes to the visitation, any of those things, you will still have to travel back to court in Ohio in order to litigate those issues. Also, it will be imperative that a visitation order, that's a long distance visitation order, it comes into play. Just because you've moved out of the state doesn't mean that the other parent doesn't get to see the child anymore. It just means there needs to be a new way that this is going to happen. Who's going to pay for transportation? What kind of transportation is going to be appropriate, right? Will the child have to fly because you've moved cross country? Will road trips be appropriate? Who's going to be responsible for the transportation, one way or the other? Will this affect child support? There are a lot of things that come into play when you're making a decision to relocate out of the state with your child. So you want to look at your court documents and see if there's something in there that says that you can't move. If there's nothing in there that says that you can't move, I suggest talking it over with the other parent. So ideally, you can work out a plan ahead of time. The other parent is not caught off guard that you're planning to move, and you guys have come up with a plan on how the other parent will visit the child even once they've moved to a new state.